You're tuned in to RX Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to RX Radio. Myself, Jordan Jiunta, here with the one, the only Eric Bugera. He's like the unicorn of the internet, the most wise person to use Instagram wrong. That's the intro I thought of for you this morning.
Yep.
But yeah, Eric does, most things that matter behind the scenes for us here at Prescript. That's Bugera. Bugera runs the collective. He does a lot of the emails that you guys receive in your inbox. He's just the kind of get it done guy. We're working on a big project behind the scenes that you guys will hear about soon, hopefully before the end of the year. Who the fuck knows at this point? Yeah. But ladies and gentlemen, Eric Bugera, it's great to see you, man.
Oh, hey. Yeah, the last 6 months of being buried is really, it's been a showcase on everything that we try to like preach, teach, and otherwise tell clients and coaches, like allostatic load, how the impact of everything on your training, and especially what was actually crazy to me. For context, like I've been going through nothing that other people have never gone through before, but we're doing a move, and so we're managing both properties in the middle of the move. I have a toddler, and I'm a stay-at-home dad while also full-time working for my company, like my programming company, but also Prescript. So juggling all three of those sort of aspects, like 12 hours consecutively, like wake to sleep for the kiddo is effectively like my partner as well, but like I'm the stay-at-home component, so it's like that's my job. Yeah. In conjunction with figuring out, and that's the luxury also of what we do with online sort of coaching, and that's the real strength. I can dig into that. Like it's interesting observations on that too, but that's the real strength of what we do online is when things upend what would be a typical schedule. So where people work 9 to 5, they work whatever. No, I'll just work the fringes. I'll work the tail end of either one of those, and my actual work, contracted work, my client work, stuff like that, never dropped off ever since becoming a full-time stay-at-home dad, but also in now managing the third aspect, which is double property management, because we bought one house and then we're selling the old one and still managing both of those before a possession date. Again, there's people out there that are parents, that are stay-at-home parents, that have done all these things, but it's just like my perspective on it. It's actually incredible to see the things that we coach and we preach about to our clients about managing stress, how it's going to impact training and recovery, and then actually have that be an experience. And for me, and like you and I have been friends for a long time now, I am very specific with how I speak. I try to be as articulate as possible for people that are trying to learn from me, so I can deliver it in a way that's going to be digestible, so they don't leave the conversation still wondering what we're talking about. The like genuine, like hitting physical fatigue is something I think we've all been at. Physical fatigue, late onset muscle soreness, it comes with the territory. Between both of us, we've probably been trained like 20 years apiece. Like that's just like what we experience all day, every day. It doesn't impact anything, right?
Yeah.
To get to like a absolute full cup on allostatic load, like from a mental perspective too, like logistics of every single day, not being able to actually have a sit down moment to think without a toddler screaming in your ear, and like having those things truly impact like the brain fog, the memory recall, and a ton of those other things. My sleep hasn't really dropped off in that amount of time because it was pretty much ass to begin with. But like to have the actual stressors, not a physical stressor, but like again, logistical stress and just general like trying to be a balancing act. It was interesting to experience, and it gives me a deeper perspective on I was saying the right things to the right people that were going through those aspects, but now with experiencing it, I know how damning it actually can be, because legitimately trying to think of a word like a drawer or a cupboard, and my wife and I are both looking at each other just like deadpan, like what is the fucking word for that? Because we're so like stretched thin on every aspect, and we're crescendoing out of it now, and it's been hence why I'm able to speak to you again. But it's been a wild experience to like go all the way down and be like, I can't write. I can't speak proper sentences right now for like weeks or months on end. So like let's pull myself away from any of those responsibilities as much as possible to now be like re-emerging and being able to think and like see straight and listen and absorb information again. It's been a very interesting experience.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. And it's interesting in you saying like you've been saying the right things to the people that are going through this all this time, but then it's a little bit different having to experience it yourself. And I mean, I feel that on so many levels because like I'll even give an example. Like I deal with a lot of people in terms of rehab and injuries, but like I know for a fact that I'm the worst client when it comes to me like assessing myself and like being able to implement these things on myself because I want to do what the fuck I want to do. Just like anyone you're telling this stuff to. It's like I want to do the thing that I want to do. And like hopefully they're, you know, a little bit more flexible if they're hiring you to tell them what to do. But like in that situation where you know exactly what to do, but you're the one that has to hold yourself accountable, it's a lot more difficult. And there's like because you're not only dealing with, let me take a step back. It's like you as a coach telling someone to do that, you're kind of dealing with the logical side of things. It's like, okay, I'm taking in all the data, I'm taking in the information, I'm interpreting that, and I'm giving you the feedback that you need logically to help you get through this. But when it's you dealing with it yourself, you're not only dealing with that, I mean, that's kind of the last part of this, but you're dealing with the emotional side of like the stress of dealing with a toddler, the stress of, you know, putting a bid on a house and putting your house on the market and doing both simultaneously and, you know, still being able to get done all the things you need to do to pay for the house that you're going to buy and, you know, be a good husband, be a good father. So like dealing with the emotional side of that, I feel like the last thing on your mind has to be the logical side of how can I intervene and how can I do this, you know, effectively, or what do I need to do in terms of like training or like looking out for my own mental well-being so that I can show up how I need to in these situations. So that's, I can imagine that's been fucking wild over the last 6 months, year. How old's your son now?
He is 19 and a half months. We're still in months. That's okay, how development works. But
all right. So I think for normal people, it's like a year and a half and some change.
Yeah. The word that tops my mind based on like what you were just describing is like you get confronted with it. It's things that you, again, as coaches and trainers, you know, and you've helped other people work through, but then you find your threshold. Yeah. And the threshold's actually lower than you hope it would be, especially when you start to juggle multiple different things. Like if it was just training, and this is like we could scale this like you just got out of school or you got your first certification rather. You're an online coach, 20 years old, barely any responsibilities. Your threshold for like training stress is through the roof. You can be that person that like make sure you get your 10,000 steps and we'll lift 4 to 5 days a week. Let's go double down in AM, PM training sessions. Let's get our cardio in the AM fasted. And like you eventually get confronted with, you can't run from your own mortality. You can't run from your own biology. And that realization, it is actually quite a harsh thing to be confronted with the first time until you realize how once you've been confronted with it, it's already too late. Like once you hit that threshold, you're probably fucked for a couple days, if not a couple weeks, before you can reel everything back in, especially in an industry like ours where what you do today, speaking as a trainer first and then obviously an educator as well, and a content creator for Prescript as well, what you do today impacts what happens 2 to 3 weeks, months down the line. Like it's something that you do now is going to be marketing for later. It's going to be planting of seeds. And so something like my Instagram that I use very wrong, that was something that because it wasn't an immediate payable contract, it's something that is like, it's a more nebulous, it's a more vague sort of thing. I put out content the way I put out content. And then eventually through like loose marketing, stuff like that, just through consistency, it helps to draw in leads and eventually keeps my business self-sustaining with a very low amount of actual effort. It's something that's integrated into my lifestyle. But at that stage, okay, I have immediate, like consistent weekly targets that need to be met for content production for certain contracts. I have my client work that needs to be done all the day, every day in some capacity, but every week on a specific day. And you start to hit that threshold of like you're at wit's end, you're at your peak allostatic load, and something's got to be pulled back in the immediate term to free up that space because you cease to be efficient at what you used to be efficient at. Yeah. And then you have to like claw back, get yourself back under control, and then try to scale it to a way that is now the sustainable position for you in this state. And then eventually reinforce the habits or the behaviors or even the downtime, like actually adhering to downtime that will allow you to recuperate and be able to do the thing that you were doing prior at the same level. because in our industry there is a modicum of creativity no matter what, like in programming, in client interactions, it's social, there's a dynamic there. And if you're just working at it from a purely robotic standpoint, it'll work for a while, but eventually, like, that's not why people hire coaches.
Right.
So if I work myself and like stretch myself into this brain dead state, my creative content for social media and loose marketing torpedoes, or I just don't have the time to do it anymore. And if it torpedoes, I don't want to post it anyways, because there's a certain threshold again of like standard of quality or meaningfulness that I want to, like, I know within the first like 2 sentences of trying if I'm boned for the day, because my brain isn't braining, right? But then also if you start to, again, robotically interact, or if you, heaven forbid, you start to miss things, you start to get overwhelmed and you don't jot down a note, you don't like set a reminder for something, things start to slip, and then all of a sudden a client has every right in the world to be like, well, fuck this, I'm not a priority, or this person clearly doesn't have the bandwidth to be managing me, so there's no reason to be paying them and I'm going to depart. Marry those two things, slow departure of marketing and planting of seeds for future sustainability, clients start to depart and you don't have the time resource to offset any of this. And you start to, again, it just dog piles onto that allostatic load, that stress. And essentially I'm describing like my last 6 months. Like I got to that threshold, realized I needed to pull back. And then in the interim period of pulling back, like nothing ever truly pulls back. You just find ways of filling it with other stressors. But I had that happen where natural end of contracts or natural end for with clientele, like hitting either they wanted to depart, they want to try a new trainer for a different perspective, we're done, whatever is happening, the natural turnover, and you have no capacity to be replacing it because of being stretched so thin. So again, it's a confrontation. It lets you know that you've gotten there and you need to be now awkwardly, and oftentimes it's like the most difficult thing for people that are highly driven, but proactively cut yourself off. You can't super saturate anymore once you get to a certain point, because there will come a time where anything deviates you from your current routine, and then it's a house of cards.
Yeah, that's I feel like I'm in a therapy session right now and you're just describing my life to me. Like, hey Jordan, this is exactly what you do. No, but I totally get it. I've, in different the fine points are different in the way that I've experienced this in the past, but like in running a business and starting new businesses, going to school, like maintaining relationships, trying to train, like we all deal with these things on, a day-to-day basis, and that's kind of what life is. And then the idea that there's only so much to give, like in terms of allostatic load, like it's kind of just a term of like the culmination of all the stressors in your life. But like, I like to think of it more in terms of like, all right, if I have 100% effort to give today, like that's got to get distributed against all the things that I have to do. And if I can distribute 50% to work and 50% to relationships, and that's all I have, and I get a flat tire in my car, that's got to pull from somewhere else, right? It's got to take away from something else that I planned on giving effort to, and then that thing's going to suffer. So it's something that's only become relevant to me very recently in life, because I've only had the luxury very recently in life, is actually understanding that you need to kind of budget in some sort of buffer in there, so that not only can you maintain a high quality at the things that you need to maintain a high quality at, and that's something I feel very much for you, because a lot of the things that you do for work, like you said, there's a high level of creativity, they're very intellectual, you always execute at a very high level. But for me, the things that you mentioned are the first things to go for me. Like if I have a bad night's sleep, if I'm more stressed than normal, it's my memory is just not there, like the recall is not there, I can't explain things as eloquently or as in depth as I might had I had a full night of sleep or 600 milligrams of coffee. But it's the mental capacity that goes first. And then with that, like you said, like a lot of what we do is based in creativity. It's in setting yourself apart or doing something better than someone else that's doing the same thing as you. So it's a very competitive space that we're in. And like, because of the internet, there's infinite competition. Like it's you find your people and they they stick with you because of that relationship that you build. But like realistically, my entire feed is a bunch of people that do the same thing as you and I on a daily basis, and they try and prove that they're better than the next person at it. So it's like yeah, everyone has an off day, and not like every post or every article or every idea is going to be a breakthrough idea. But like, if you get into one of those down swings where it's like you're taking on too much, and then you're becoming more and more stressed out, things are starting to suffer, and then that in itself becomes another stressor on top of this, and it's really hard to kind of pull yourself out of that. And kind of the way that I'm thinking of this, because I'm retarded and this is how my brain works, is that it's a lot of what you're saying is like it's very similar to that SRA curve, like stimulus, recovery, adaptation, but like on a life scale for you, like big time for you, not necessarily for me, but like, you know, you're taking that step back, and like the stimulus or the stressor in this situation is like, all right, 19 months ago you had a kid, you decided you were going to, you know, upgrade to the forever home, and you did this all in a very short time period where, you know, you're probably stressed because 19 months probably still isn't enough time to adjust to learning how to bring a kid into this world, and that's a stressor in itself. And then, you know, dealing with real estate and the market and mortgages and all that shit, and like it's just all of these stressors like really dig you down into a hole where it's something that's like, oh fuck, like I need to figure out a way out of this. And then this is the way that I've lived my life always, is that I only figure a way out of something when I'm forced to. Like, it's I'll take on as much as I can, and then once I hit that wall of like I can't fucking do this anymore, then it's like, all right, now I need to find the way out of this. I need to find a way forward. And then you kind of create that space where, you know, you can maintain status quo on the things that you have to, but you create space for you to kind of find that recovery, find the things that restore you to adapt now and kind of propel yourself to that next level. So now it's like, all right, you're in a much better place now than you were 20 months ago when you're like, fuck, I'm about to have a kid. Like, I don't know what's going to go on. And you just kind of like, you know, you did the things that you had to do for the last 2 years to now set yourself up for a great, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 years, however long we'll be on this rock for. So yeah. I think that's like a really cool, like real life scenario of like, sometimes you got to shovel the shit and you got to do it for a while before things get better.
Yeah, it's the awareness of pushing without normalizing what you're doing, so it becomes like the forever habit. So like working on the next iteration of the PSL 1 manual, I was helping significantly with like copyright editing and stuff like that. And like there was no time through no one's pressure but my own to really accomplish it in the timeline I wanted, unless I put it on the bookends of my already bookends. So I've got a kid to look after all day, and there's no predictability for like a time to sit down and be able to like mentally lock in on something like trying to make sure Shallow sounds as articulate as humanly possible. I need silence and I need time for that to do it, and especially with a physical manual that's like the length and in detail that it is. Yeah. So it becomes, all right, then kiddo's going to go to bed, and I'm going to take an hour or two at like the deepest end of my day where I shouldn't have brain cells, but I'm going to somehow, and get it done here. And then the wild success of being able to do that in the small capture of time that I did, that can't be normalized. That was part of like the pullback time period where you realize like, oh shit, the only time I have is in this time that shouldn't exist. Right. But I was successful with it. And like the allure to then double down and be like, well, that's now a resource. It's not a resource. It was never a resource. That's a resource for you to turn off and to make sure that when the time comes to actually be on again, you're actually mentally refreshed. You're actually able to articulate. You're able to, like, the 600 milligrams of caffeine to the dome is a bridge. That's another thing that it's like, I'm amazed sometimes at the content I create, either written or verbally, because of caffeine in a complete sleep deprived state. Only to realize, like, yeah, this is, then there's the times where it doesn't work. And you're like, yeah, it's a bridge. It's not an actual thing that you should be doing the whole time. And so you realize, like, those are the moments where you have to call your own shit the way you would with a client, where it's like, yeah, but I was successful. I got the workouts in, or I ate a certain way, but your strategy to accomplish that was not sustainable. And it was, if you stretched that curve out, the graph out long enough, it's probably going to be a net negative. Yeah. So, like, in a competitive space like ours with competitive people like we are, And again, with no matter how you pull it, like social media dopamine hits, the encouragement of other people's praise and adulation for like if a post goes viral or semi-viral for you, or if people like are on your bandwagon clapping you up because you said something that they agreed with, whatever. Even if you're super smart about not letting that get to you generally, and you're doing what you're doing. Like you raised the point, like I can't remember how you said it, but I'm the most successful person to use Instagram wrong or something like that. Like
the most wise person to use Instagram.
Like something to that effect, right?
Yes.
Like even I, like when I had to pull off of my creative writing or my fitness writing for social media for a while, and I'm still like barely, I don't have a routine for it right now. It's like when I can, right? Yeah. But the small dopamine hits, no one is impervious to it. Getting feedback that is positive on things is always going to get you. And so it's not a thing that like you can't just now, well, it worked for the manual, maybe I'll just start my writing at that. I'm like, no, shut off. Just shut off. There's a limit. Unless you're going to transform your entire person and your entire personality and forsake all other responsibilities, all other things, like, because everything has a consequence. Unless you're going to go full send, like I am a mogul and I'm going to have, like, I'm not going to necessarily have kids, or I'm going to definitely have family or outsource support for that. I'm not going to be the person that's fully involved in it. Or I'm going to, like, whatever it may be, like using myself as that analogy, right? I would have to send the kiddo to daycare like super early. I would have to probably pull back or rearrange how I go about my entire daily plan with like my wife or the pets, how I would care for them, whatever it might be, right? Mm-hmm. It's not a thing I'm willing to do to then somehow sustain that level of output or sustain that whatever it would take to get to the next level. I actually remember having that conversation, and maybe you and I talked about this on one of the podcasts we talked about with more business orientation. But I remember speaking to my wife. I had hit a level of my own personal business, like adjacent to Prescript, where I was like, I think this is where it stays. Because if I were to hit a new threshold, the amount of input to get to that next threshold level of sustainable income or sustainable whatever that new model would be, it's a disproportionate jump you have to make. Like you have to invest hard to get over that hump and then sustain it. In our field, if you're a coach or a trainer online, in person, doesn't matter. It would be the difference between I'm a single entity corporation that's highly self-sustaining, but one person, to now I have to expand and either get into, like, I do, like, there's a couple of our colleagues in the space that I've worked with before and I'm friends with, that they do the challenges, they do the mass social media, like Facebook group, or like those kind of things where every month, every couple months, they have this massive thing that they roll out, huge amounts of marketing, and it's a big pillar of their revenue. Or I develop a team. I was like, I'm not the personality. I'm a team member. I am fucking team Prescript. Let's go. I'm not a team leader for my own business. There's too much delegation. There's too much moving parts that mentally I've come to this realization that that's the kind of career path I want. It's the kind of job orientation that I want to have. I want to be able to work extremely hard on my own terms, but then not have the responsibility of other people's success outside of when I voluntarily help someone do that kind of stuff. So yeah, it would be a disproportionate level of input to get to the next level. Is that next level even worth it? I don't think it is for the way that I would want to live and what brings me satisfaction. And that took a lot of years in the space to kind of realize, because everything is such a capitalist, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but forever forward incremental growth. I was like, I think I hit a line where I'm like, let's offset inflation, let's offset whatever economic shit, obviously, but like, I think we're good. Like,
And fuck, this is why I love talking to you, because that's so mature and so non-egotistical that you're just very honest with yourself, and you're like, you know what? I don't need to be the 10x your profits, grow the team of 100 employee, like whatever the internet says you need to be. That's you being like, no, like I know my values. I know what I want to do. I know how I want to live my life, and I'm going to do what it takes professionally to support that, but I'm not going to over invest into that because that doesn't align with my goals. And that's, I think that's a really powerful message, because that's like, I think that's a very true message to a lot of people, very applicable. But just like anything on, I always refer to social media because that's where, everyone's glued to social media. Like, we're getting inundated with things that get pushed towards us all the time. And the reason they get pushed to us is because they're different and they create conversation or controversy. And that's like largely the message that's fed on social media, is that you need to wake up at 3:55 a.m. and dunk your face into Saratoga water and whatever, XYZ, all the stuff you see on the internet. But I think that's the message that people really need to hear, is that, like, no, if you want to be happy, then you have to find something that's sustainable and it aligns with your goals. And I think that's the perfect, this is why I love podcasting with you, because you articulate things so well. But that's such an applicable idea. I don't, because I can't talk, apparently. But that's there's a lot of application to that idea in all realms of life, whether it's professional, whether it's training, whether it's relationships, is that there's probably going to be a sweet spot in the amount of effort that you put forth and the amount of reward that you get back from that. And there's going to be probably a part of that that's linear, that the amount of effort has a direct correlation with the amount of thing that you like that you get back from that. But then there's going to be a part where the effort starts to supersede the amount that you're going to get back. And like, business is a really easy example because we can make it very objective. It's like, if you want to make $10,000 a month, there's probably a very linear correlation with how hard you work and how much money you make, up to probably around that, like $120,000 a year. That's a pretty good salary. So if you want to double that, it's not like you just need to work twice as hard. You probably need to work 5 times as hard to create infrastructure and to set up systems and train people, and yes, all the shit that's probably giving you and me anxiety right now. So it's like there's a certain point which, you can have a very happy, sustainable career because of the amount of effort that you're diverting into this. But if you want to, build a 7-8 figure business in the next 16 months, whatever they're trying to sell you online, like, it's not going to be linearly like you work this much more, you make this much more. It's going to be like you work this much more for an amount of time that a lot of people aren't willing to do it or can't do it, and then maybe you'll see more success because of that. Or the same thing with, like, strength training is a very objective one too. Is like, you train for 5 years, and at that point you probably see there's probably a pretty linear correlation between how hard you train and how much stronger you get, or the progress that you see. And then after that point, it's like, no, I train, I don't know, like you said, we've both been training for over 2 decades each. I train, I can't remember last time I hit a personal best on something. I can, actually.
Yeah.
It was like last August on my squat, because I dedicated an entire year to doing that. And it's like, progress becomes few and far between because of the amount of effort that you've already expended, and you have to continue to expend to maintain the level of progress that you've had. And then the amount of effort that it takes on top of that, which, kind of referring back to allostatic load, like you mentioned earlier, is if you get to that point where now in business, in training, in personal relationships, in whatever else, I need to expend more energy, that has to come from somewhere else. Something else is going to suffer if you want to be able to have the energy to dedicate to this thing. So are you willing to sacrifice from family, from personal relationships, from business, from gym, from working out, from personal time, from mental health, from recovery, from sleep? Like, the time and the effort has to come from somewhere. And that has to, it's more respectable, I guess, if it's a conscious decision. Like, if you can, kind of like you're saying, is like doing the manual on the fringes of your capability. It's like, all right, I'm operating with 80% bandwidth, so I can save 20% for unforeseen things, which I'm sure you have plenty with buying a home and having a kid and being a responsible adult. But I'm going to take another 10% out of that to knock this out, just to realize how much I appreciate having that 10% back in. So I guess, just the balancing act of life. And that's, you painted a really vivid picture of how you only have so much to give. And if that's something that you're going to continue to take from, things are going to start to suffer. And there's no way around that.
The second you said infrastructure, like, my butt puckered a bit. I'm like, that's the line. The second infrastructure,
right?
Like, my infrastructure is a G Suite and by Squarespace that I haven't updated basically since I launched my career online like 5 years ago. Like, eventually I'll touch base with like one of our friends that's in marketing stuff. I'm big, hey, I have a little bit of money, please help, because I can't on my own. I'm a fucking idiot. I'm a trainer. I'm not a marketer, right? But like those things, like that's my overhead. My overhead is like probably sub 10 grand a year for all in to run this business. Infrastructure. No. Once we get there, that's a disproportionate level of, again, like I'm in a good spot, man. Most of my revenues are salary at this point. Like that's sweet. But again, the next level would be, let's get a team, let's onboard them. How much do I have to charge and or train people through them to make sure that they have an upright business, that they're sustained and happy, that I can then siphon profits off of that towards me. And that's not an evil thing. That's literally how things work. If you just think about wages and think about, okay, a company that's employing someone, that person is happy and gainfully employed and able to be sustained. How much money on top of that is marked up so the company has a reason for their existence? I don't want to do that math or have that responsibility. Sick. I'm here. And it literally just takes the 10X thing that you spoke to, which is everybody gets inundated with, or like they don't even have a single client and they have like business coaches hawking them. I personally, within the first 3 months of being online, I remember the people that touch base with me because one was local and I keep tabs on them to see where they're at now. And it's an interesting but not surprising end result for a lot of them. But yeah, like people get in their head and they just need someone to speak aloud in their algorithm or in their life, in their like circle of influence, be like, hey, if you get to a point where you're satisfied, like genuinely you have reached your level of life and business satisfaction, you can be cool to maintain that and like go for a fucking walk, experience nature, have a family, do stuff like the inundation with, if you're not making consistent growth. And again, you have to offset how the world naturally evolves for inflation, for wage changes, for if the market changes and now all of a sudden one-to-one is not the thing, it's group, whatever. Like you have to make those changes to be on the ball. But like it's okay if you reach a point where it's like, yeah, I'm good. But the internet says I should feel guilt for having any time off, or like, and that's not even an internet thing. That's like a life societal thing. If you ever have leisure, you're catastrophe. It's going to be catastrophized as the second you take your foot off the pedal, your business will collapse, the economy will collapse, your house is going to be foreclosed on, and somehow your kid is going to be taken away, or something like some crazy amount of things that if I'm not making more money every single year, something bad is going to happen. Like, yeah, just be smart, stay on top of it. But like, someone in your life needs to tell you that what are your actual values here. And once you get there, money makes the world go around. Let's not be ignorant, but only so much money is required. Pay your bills, have the assets that you need, support your family, think about retirement. Big one, like, because no one does, like, think about that in advance. But like, once you're there, man, like, what actually gives you satisfaction? Like, Prescript was not founded because you were like, I got to get rich. It was like, I'm upset at the low quality of information that's out there and how everybody just struggles to do these really rudimentary things that if you look at the human body from a principles-based perspective, we know anatomy, we know biomechanics, some of us understand and interpret biomechanics a little bit more efficiently than others, but we know these things. Why is the current information out there so butt cheeks? Why is it struggle city for everybody to actually implement these kind of things? Cool, let's make a business, let's make a company, and let's just take over that space so that it's higher quality. Neat. Do you make money doing that? Yeah, fuck yeah. Do you employ a team of people as well? Fuck yeah. Congratulations. You're doing things that I don't want to do. But at what stage did you start this up and be like, you know what would satisfy me? Lots and lots of money. So that's why I'm going to do this. Like, no, what satisfies me? And I reflect on this actually quite a lot, because it was probably 2 or 3 years ago while I was working with Prescript where a lot of the boxes started to get checked on what actually fulfills me in my career. And I was like, okay, I get to spread my experience. I get to teach others and help others who are in a similar position as me, or rather are in a similar position that I was when I was at their stage of career development. Sick. I do the same thing as a coach for my clients. I get to give them perspective and coaching and advice based upon my knowledge of how it was when I was in their position. That's extremely satisfying for me. I have ideally earned the respect of people that I respect. So my contemporaries in the field, the ones that I care about, the ones that I respect, from whatever relationships I've started to forge with people, even outside of the circle of influence of Prescript, my own sort of friendships that I've started to develop online, I've earned the respect of people that I respect. Check mark. Like that's incredibly important to me, and I've started to do that. I can support myself and my family. Check. Okay, cool. there's extreme levels of satisfaction from that again, as we're having our open therapy session on where I've been the last 6 months, where you're at, where everybody is probably hurtling towards slowly but surely, like it's important to keep those things in check somewhere, so you don't just get headfirst driven through a wall of catastrophization that if you don't keep growing, even though you kind of hit a good benchmark of where your personal value exists, you're just going to keep running past it and not be able to actually appreciate the things that you truly have already earned.
Yeah, I think that's a really good perspective, and that's it. Again, it's something you're saying, the things that I think people need to hear, right? And there is a certain level of security that you need to have to be able to have the luxury to think of things this way, right? Like I've been very broke in my life, and it's like, I'm like, all right, shut the fuck up, Bugera. I'll sleep when I have time to sleep because I need groceries and a place to sleep first. And like, there's going to be a point where, you'll claw yourself out of that. And, when you're in it, it feels like you won't, but you will. And then the things that now keep me going, because like you said, it was never about like being rich, and like I didn't even have plans to retire because that seemed so unfeasible until I was in my 30s. And which is like, I don't know how that maps out with like relative to the normal person, but I'm sure smarter people think of it a lot sooner than that. But I guess what I'm getting at is that this all started with, for me, this all started with my drive and my passion around having a purpose and having strong values around the way that things should be done, right? Is that I have values around this thing that I think people are largely doing incorrectly. I think people are kind of bastardizing. I think people are very predatory in this space, and I want to spread truth around that. And that's like kind of at the core of it, how Prescript started. But that's even more important than that. That was my purpose and my values about being in this space and in my career. And it's no different than that right now. And that's still exactly what it is. And the fact that was, a genuine, pure system of values that I truly believe in. And like part of that is seeking truth. Like it's not that I want to be right. It's that I want to find the truth so that I can convey that. Right. And I think that's an important part of this, because that allows it to be dynamic. It's not about winning the argument. It's about evolving the conversation on the whole. And that's like having values around what you're doing allow you to then look at it in that perspective. Is that like, I find a lot of purpose in this because I'm doing something good. Right. And like you said, it's, I'm not a father. I don't know if I'll ever be a father, but I've had. This is a weird moment for me, and I'll shout out Ross Nesbitt. We all know him here at Prescript. I was on a call with him, and he told me that I was like a father to a bunch of people through Prescript. And I'm like, that's weird. But it's exactly what you're saying. It's not necessarily in that sense of like being a father, but in the sense of like providing guidance to people that need it at a certain point in their career, right? So like in more of, I guess, like the word in this space, even though it has a negative connotation, would be like a mentorship. Like I don't know what you thought I was gonna say, but like kind of being a resource for people that are at a point where maybe they're passionate about training, maybe they find a lot of purpose in helping people, but they don't know what the next step is, or they don't know how to make this into an actual career. And that's kind of like a lot of what I've found my purpose in this industry to be, is like, okay, I've been through that. I've struggled through that. I've been really broke. I know exactly what you're experiencing. Like I've had trouble asking clients for more money, or, upping my rates, or whatever the thing is, or like growing my business. And it's like, if I can help someone else with that and make that not stressful for them so that they can worry about these life things, like take some of that stress off this so you can invest back into your relationships or your mental health. Because we know trainers have a fucking stupid schedule and they work all the time indefinitely. So if you can set up systems that allow you to buy your time back and actually enjoy life as opposed to just working, like that's pretty cool to be able to give that to someone else or help someone with that, setting up those systems.
Yeah, just the trainer aspect, as someone that has Like I have Gen Pop clients. I have clients of all walks of life, but I have a healthy contingent that are also coaches themselves, because it's like hybridization of teach you about being a trainer through the vehicle of your actual programming itself. It's very effective and very fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the conversation, there's one client in particular I spoke with probably like a week or two ago, and he's in probably approaching like the mid to tail end, probably just about mid 20s, starting like maybe 26, 27, right? He's been doing this a while. He's starting to realize like things that his priorities in life, and he's like struggling with retention of friendships or like meaningful relationships, because he's been like, and this is the way that it is. I can speak to that from my experience, and I'm interested in yours too. But yeah, man, like as you get older, you're going to start to narrow, because you're going to have to very much so focus on, in your 20s, my experience was, and again, it's something, thankfully, I thought of it while I was in it, but like your 20s should be death. Like you have no responsibilities and all the recovery in the world. Fucking saturate yourself, completely saturated, absolutely super saturated even, because like you're not me in this position in life right now. You have no responsibilities. There's no consequence to you running yourself ragged, aside from, man, I need a nice weekend at the spa to recover. That's it. So all the education, all the work, all the overtime, fucking everything. You're launching yourself through your career, through your education, to set yourself up so that when you get to your 30s, you're a lot more established, and you're still young enough to be able to like basically pare things down and make them super efficient, to then build towards the 30s, or excuse me, the 40s and 50s, where what does a career look like at that stage? What does my life look like at that stage? What do I need? How established do I need to be to start pulling those cards and like make sure that I can set myself up like that? And all along the way, like, you'll have some significant drop off in relationships. Like the time you have, the convenient places where you would typically find forever friends and things like that, like school or whatnot. The second you're out, those things drop off. The amount of people that probably find like really close friends or even spouses in workplaces or in other places that are like, this is now where you just spend all of your time. It's like almost like a self-selection or like a self-fulfilling prophecy kind of aspect there, because like, you aren't anywhere else. You are in a very specific place. And that's the reality of it. You grind to death in your 20s to set yourself up for your 30s, and then start to pull and claw things back. But there are certain opportunities, there are certain aspects of life that while you do that become increasingly challenging because of how much time you're allocating to one thing. It's the experience that I've had, and it's to use the term again, but it's like a disproportionate level of effort to reemerge out of that, and then have to actively like completely shift your perspective. Be like, yo, how do I find people in a way that is also not going to waste a tremendous amount of time that I don't have to be developing these close-knit relationships? So it's a wild experience.
Yeah, I totally agree. And to speak on that last point, it's hard for me to maintain relationships that I don't deem to be meaningful, right? Like I don't have surface level relationships at this point in my life. And if they are like that, it's very much that. Like it's, oh yeah, weather's nice today. Like how was the weekend? All right, I'll see you, whatever. Like it's people that I see on a regular basis, but I'm not willing to invest in a relationship at this point that is going to take energy from me that isn't going to return in some way. And I know that sounds really selfish, and it's not like, I'm just going to pay attention to people that can serve me in some way. And it's not necessarily that. It's not like, they have to do something for me in the sense that, someone might think of like a transactional relationship, but it's like that relationship has to be gratifying to me. And it's not like, I drank a lot when I was in college. I don't drink at all now. And a lot of times that was just a reason to hang out with people in college. It's like, oh, you guys are going out to the bar or whatever. Like, I'm going to come too. Like, we'll talk. And like, there's not really any depth to that. And those are like the type of relationships that kind of fall off over time. It's like, oh yeah, like the thing we had in common was that we both liked Yingling lager. Like, okay, like I don't have room for that. I don't have energy. Yeah. I don't have space for that right now. It's like, even this, like Bugera, I almost called you Eric, and that would have been weird. Weird. I know. I consider you one of my good friends, and this is largely how we communicate like this. But I know, like, we have a lot of the same value systems. Like we care about a lot of the same things. We have similar perspective on things. And it's like, yeah, we may not call each other and talk on the phone all the time, but like, we get to do a podcast, and that's pretty cool. I'm like, oh, Eric's doing well. I'm happy for him. And it's like more so that sort of thing is that like, I want to align myself with people that are not necessarily pursuing similar goals than me, but have like passion and aspirations and like drive in the areas of their life that are important to them, because those are underlying qualities that you can find commonality on. And you can, like, even if one of the I have very few friends that I still stay in contact with from like that high school, college, like that time period. But one of my best friends, his name's Shane, like I still will call each other on the phone maybe once a month and like have like a 30-minute conversation, just kind of catch up. And our lives are completely different. Like he's a parole officer. He's like been trying to get into the state police. He's having his second kid, and like we'll just kind of catch up. But he's just a solid fucking dude. And it's like, all right, I want to like, you know, encourage him in the things that he's doing, and like see, like kind of share the things that I'm doing with him, because that's very gratifying to me to like share that with someone who has like a similar drive and a similar push, even though it's in a completely different direction than me. And that's more so what I mean. Like, I don't have the room for surface level relationships. It's because like I just don't have the energy. Like my energy, it's already been bid and bought by so many things. So it's like it's already predetermined what I'm gonna give fucks about for the next, I don't know, 5 years of my life.
Yeah.
So unless like something seamlessly fits into that, or it's something that I can justify taking that attention away from these things to put into this, because it's then going to be an investment back into these things, because it gives me more energy, more mental bandwidth. Like those are the things, those are the type of relationships that I value. And that's like me and Corey, like we have a very good relationship where like we both work in a very similar way. So we have very productive conversations around things that are very pertinent to both of our careers. But like we can also just go and fuck off and like not talk about work for an entire weekend, and then come back and be like, all right, let's fucking get it. Like, let's put our head down and let's grind. And like shit like that is that it's not completely evident that taking that time off and stepping away from the thing that you need to be productive in will be helpful. But once you get back to it, you come back to it more recharged, and you come back to it in a way that allows you to be more productive, because you do have that mental bandwidth, because you had that step away to maybe gain perspective that it's hard to get when everything's so up close to you and you're kind of in the trenches. So you kind of take a step back and you come back with a new perspective, and then that could be the spark for the creativity, or like seeing things from a different angle that maybe you hadn't thought of before, or like exploring different thoughts around something that you thought you had predetermined thoughts on. So it's like those are the type of relationships that like I put a lot of value and a lot of stock into. And for me, it's really hard to justify something that isn't going to be regenerative to me, even if that's like, I understand the idea of like you were talking about content this way, is like investing in this, even though there's not an inherent like a short-term benefit. And I will invest in relationships in that way, where it's like I think that like, you know, this could be very productive in the long term, but I think the thing is like now I'm better at determining if that will or won't be the case, or like the reasonable amount of risk in being wrong in that, and just protecting my time and my mental energy with a lot more intention than I have when I was, you know, in my teens, in my 20s.
Yeah, I've routinely, and especially I've doubled down this year specifically, where I've purged everything that is fitness from my life that is not specifically my work, because I'm maybe 36 in a month or whatever. I've been in this industry since I was 21. Like I've been around the content, and I've seen enough of the cyclic nature of trends exploding and then going away, and then basically the like 1% adjacent to that thing all of a sudden popping back up, and people thinking it's super novel or whatever it is. Like I've seen the gossip, the drama, the weirdness that is every space, but the fitness space especially is weird for that, because we're working out everybody. So over the time, like I've come to realize that just the constant exposure to just what I deem as my passion, but just completely in the dumbest format possible, because it's a hybridization of fitness into clickbait, into some form of like whatever emotional response I can elicit when I'm like, it's working out. There's some degree of objectivity to how this works, and there's some degree of subjectivity based on my own training philosophy and the uniqueness of each client. I don't understand how there is people that can literally content create about fitness unless you're going to intentionally start to recycle through key things, which is important too, because not everybody sees everything you put out. So recycling isn't bad. But then you start to see people go down, and that's how like the major trends explode is someone says something objectively wrong or just completely absurd, but it gains steam. And then now all of a sudden that's what you have to deal with. So I had to like pull myself away from that because it just became like essentially just enraging to be like saturated by it, to open up what I would deem a social platform that I unfortunately need to use as part of my business. And unfortunate because I would prefer to know people on a social platform socially. And that's really where, if you were to check like my follower list, like I have anyone and everyone that I know is like a Prescript student, alumni, anyone that I can be interacting with, they get the follow back. And then there's like 10 people that are actually in the industry that are people that I don't care. I enjoy your content because you look in the camera, call someone a bitch, and then there's a intelligent caption, and then we're cool. Thanks, I love it. But I follow you because I want to see what's actually happening in your life in the small flickers that you can actually put out there, because it is also still a business account for you. And that's the same with everybody that I'm following. It's like, let's live vicariously and see what they're up to, because again, we're not going to have a tremendous amount of time to have a sit down. This is a podcast where we're basically socializing, you and I, right? Yeah. This is like how, and pre and post, we'll chill for a bit. And like, I'll see you in, maybe if I'm hanging out on one of your labs in a couple weeks, like I'll see you when I see you kind of thing. Right. But that's the hallmarks of a true, deep and meaningful relationship. It's the friend that you had from being in high school or whatever it was. And literally Shane, as you described him, but like you don't talk for maybe once a month. Maybe I don't see some of my true, deep relationships from childhood for 5-10 years. There's a handful of people I can think of right now that if I called them up, we went and hang out, which I can't believe I just said hang out, because I can't think of something that gives me more anxiety than hanging out. I'm like, I have so much shit to do. Like I have so much to do. But like I could do that and it would be like we never ceased talking. Like that decade gap didn't exist, right? It's just they're a different person in a different walk of life, but it's not like having to sift through the business guys on social media first, and like who is full of shit, who's presenting a certain product effectively, and who is being genuine, and then having to then build a relationship with them through genuine slow burn interactions to not be a fucking weirdo and just be like, I want to be friends. Right? Like it's a quite a challenging place in life to be, but it's like to organically create these interactions and these friendships online. It's just work at that stage. And I mean that in a positive way. Like when you do it, it's like, it's something you'd be very intentional about. Yeah. And I've been fortunate enough to find a handful of people, even through social media in the fitness space, that like I was attracted to what they were putting out in terms of their intelligence behind it, their experience, their lifestyle, whatever. And I'm like, okay, let's keep tabs on this person. Yeah. Just see how they, because like, just wait, sometimes years, and then you'll see the real person real quick. Like at some stage you'll see something happen, you'll be like, oh, that's who they are, okay, cool. And it takes a while, but then you can slowly start to vet. And like everything we were saying about like in your youth, when you have all the time in the world, there's no consequences, it's very easy to just branch out and have like a massive group of friends or people you interact with. As you get older, the time is an extreme constraint. I'm not going to go hang out with you because in this 2-hour gap of my entire week, I need to hang out with my wife. I should probably play with my kid, whatever the instance might be. So it's just this very slow burn. Just I'm going to keep an eye on you. Yeah. I'm going to see, is this someone that if I finally starting to engage with for real, I've got like 2 years with a creep in to make sure that like you are who you say you are.
The 2-year vetting process.
Yeah.
No, I love it though, because the thing about meeting people online, which is like largely how I think people make friends now, outside of like the daily things that you do, like if you go to school or go to the gym, or like people that are kind of in your bubble. The thing about it is, I don't think anyone this isn't true. Fuck it. I don't think anyone online is exactly who they are online, right? Because it'd be impossible to show everything, and then like you're not who you are in real life if you are who you are online, right? You're just fucking recording everything for the internet. And that's like, I'll say to myself, everything that I put online is a reflection of who I am as a person, but it's not who I am as a person. That's who I am as a person online because I work online, right? It's like, I'm not going to have the same conversation like off camera. I mean, this is a pretty leisurely conversation with you, so this is maybe an off-camera conversation. But like, I'm not just going to go around talking about hip function as I go to the grocery store, or like, you know, all this shit. Like, I live the life that I live, and it's like people are going to always put on some sort of veil online to filter them towards the audience that they want to speak to, right? And myself included, yourself, like anyone that's on the internet. So that's why it's like it is a bit of a harder vetting process online. But even like thinking about this, to me, it really just boils down to values. Like the people that I align best with and I consider my friends, it's because we have a very similar value system and we deem very similar things to be important, and we live our life a certain way because of that. And that's really kind of the core of this. And if I can see, that's something I think I can readily identify if someone is doing things that doesn't align with my system of values. And it's like, oh, like, all right, like whatever. I like what you say about exercise, but like, I don't think I really fuck with you. And that's like, you know, on a personal level. And those are things that like, it's okay to differentiate those things. It's like, yeah, I think you put out good information, but I think you're a shit human. So I don't know. There's plenty of those out there. But I guess that's like kind of what it boils down to for me, is like identifying first, like you need to know your values as a person. And that's like something that's maybe not very evident for people that are a little bit younger or like are just trying to get up and like running in their career. Cause like, yes, you have values as a person, which I think that's important, but then you also have values in business, and you need to be able to identify those things readily so you can align yourself with people that are kind of the same thought process, or the people that you want to be around and network around. And then that's going to attract the clientele that's attracted to that value system. And I think that's kind of like the core of this, you know, navigating business relationships, personal relationships, online relationships, is just identifying your value system and then identifying that in other people that you want to be associated with.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best distillation of like the last half of this conversation, is figuring out like, if I want to be literally just in any format, have an active relationship with someone, be it business, be it social, be it whatever, I don't want to also then have to think about how you're going to act in any given situation that may be directly linked back to me in some capacity.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually ties in nicely to what I was saying about single entity corporation. Like the next level would be a team, or whatever extrapolation of who would be, is like, that's a very hard thing to get used to and start to manage. Is how do people that work with me, how are they going to act? Like, do I know them deeply enough? Do I know their values deeply enough? Have they been cemented to me that if I give them an assigned task, if they're going to represent the same banner that I represent, if everything they say is somehow linked back to me because we wear the same shirt, is that someone that I can actually, like, can I fuck with them? Like, do I have to worry about what they're about to say in an online space? And that's probably the biggest allure to like I've reached that spot business-wise, but in terms of who I work with, what I do in terms of my own business, stuff like that, is that I don't really have to think. Either I don't have to think, or if a situation arises, I kind of know how that person thinks enough to, if it's not specifically what I would do, I can kind of encapsulate what I know that they would probably do. And there's not a whole lot of guesswork, because that degree of like mental burden of being like, okay, what's coming next? That is a wild amount of anxiety to try to manage from a business perspective.
Fucking tell me about it. Yeah, and like, I have to be very grateful for that, because we have a great team here at Prescript, yourself included. Like, everyone that wears the shirt, I'd co-sign anything they say without hearing it. Like, and that's like the cool part of this, is that if you put out, you know, kind of a strong belief in your value system, you will attract people with a similar value system. And I think that's exactly what, you know, Prescript as a whole is a representation of, is people who have strong values and strong beliefs around, you know, exercise. But it doesn't end there. Like, it does ripple into other areas of life. And that's why everyone that's on the team, like, they fucking work hard. They're very successful. They're very smart. They're good at what they do. Like, a lot of them have been high performers in other areas too. So it's like, it's really cool to be able to surround yourself with that type of people, because I've learned more from like the staff, even just the staff and the students at Prescript, than I have ever on my own, I ever would have without them. So it's like, that's the value of this, is that if you can determine those values in yourself and you can attract those people, like, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, I think I said that right. It's like everyone working together to make everyone better is always going to be better than you working alone to make yourself better. And that's been the most gratifying part of this experience for me, is that, yeah, it's cool to see the business grow. It's cool to make money, but like, it's even better to meet good people that like are very convicted in what they're doing, to learn from them, and then to build a network of those people so that there's like it's basically just a support system for your career. And that's cool to see. And that's cool to like, it's fucking open market. Like anyone could join. Anyone that believes in these things, they can hop in and they can learn and they can be part of this. And that's like, pretty much everyone that works for us now they've come in organically. So it's like people that just like have liked what we're doing, have taken the courses, have been vocal. It's like, hey, you're cool. You want to work for us? And that's like, it's just been a really cool experience.
Yeah. The natural evolution is anytime, and a couple of us have had this question a couple times, and can segue into like a 2-minute quick. We had a plan to sort of loosely talk about like scope of practice or some shit, and it just organically evolved into us chilling. But
yeah,
we've had a couple of us. Actually, I think it was you. Actually, I DM'd about it too. Like we've had people reach out, either through direct messages, even through like labs. So we got every once in a while, be like, hey, how can I get involved with the team? And it's just be involved. Literally, just be involved and be you, be genuine, be like uphold your values, your principles, and be in the space and work your ass off to excel. And then you get noticed. Literally, that's it. Like, just be good at what you do and be a good person, and for a long enough period of time. And like every single person on the team, barring Jiunta and Shallow, which kind of, he really pulled that thread all the way back to the root. You noticed each other in the same way that every other person on the team sort of developed into a team position. Is just do your thing at a high level, find the person or the team that is like-minded to you, and then eventually you'll just be like, yo, you want to do this thing with us? Like, yeah, I do. Yeah. But it's like, there was never like an application. There was never like, hey, can I please work for you? That was a thing. It was mostly just like, hey, I provide this value. I've been doing this thing. Like my case specifically, I was just like, I'm going to do, of my own volition, a lab that is going to help to facilitate like myself and other students taking the content and really being able to live it to the next level, like practically apply it. Got on the radar, got noticed, and now we're doing it for real, right? Like it's certain things that you can be doing like above and beyond what the average person would think. It's not like a written application. It's presenting yourself, really, like carrying yourself and presenting yourself. And like segueing that, like I said, scope of practice, I think, was the detail we were talking about. But real quick, not to tangent this too hard because we're probably close to the end of the podcast. But like my Q&As are fun because, again, I don't use the medium correct. You will not see me recording myself aside from any clips on someone else's podcast that I get in return. It's all written content. It allows me to articulate very well. It allows me to be thoughtful about how I'm trying to say what I'm saying so that people get the right message and they walk away with the correct information. And scope of practice is something that like I'm very adherent to, even on the social media platform, which is typically the Wild West for everybody else. It's like there's zero consequences for me telling someone to go get blood work done or to take this drug or to try this method or do whatever it's going to be, because it's the internet. Yeah. And that's a shit precedent to set for people that technically are liable if they're working with clients who actually pay them money and they start doing these things, because like every jurisdiction is going to have its own kind of rules and regulations around, say, nutrition or other things. But there's definitely things in place that you could be held liable, especially if you're someone like me. I represent my company, but I also am integrated into a team like Prescript. So being integrated on a multidisciplinary team, Dr. Jordan Jiunta, Doctor of Chiropractic, let's go. Shallow, I'm trying to think. Dwayne has high education. I can't remember if Dwayne's got a clinical side of it as well. But in any respect, like these very high level, in some cases, clinical like colleagues that I work with literally daily, or if not weekly, or in some capacity, I for sure have rubbed shoulders enough and like by osmosis gathered enough information adjacent to just being a personal trainer that I can give some pretty solid clinical advice when needed. But I also know about scope of practice and that I'm not qualified in any way, shape, or form to speak outside of sets, reps, and basic information about certain things. I could tap dance on nutrition like everybody else. I'm actually highly qualified. I have a degree in nutrition and a high-end certification. However, I also know the ramifications of being wrong and the ramifications of ignorance. Ignorance is a very dangerous thing because on the internet, people speak from extreme points of ignorance extremely confidently. And so he or she who speaks with the most confidence is perceived as right when they could send you off the deep end in a clinical setting to the complete wrong direction and either waste a lot of your time and money or make a situation worse. So when I get questions about, I have pain in this, I have this clicks or this snaps or advice on recovering from this injury, I'm like, all right, here's the perspective from sets, reps, not medical advice first and foremost. Consult or collaborate with your local clinical insert whatever the fuck. But it's always going to be upheld from the perspective of I do exercise selection and technique execution. I do sets, reps, I do programming, I do that kind of stuff. Because even in the online setting, because it's how I deliver who I am as a product, who I am as a person, I'm not trying to supersede or overstep my actual experience, my actual qualifications, because that's a negative reflection on my values. So when people come up, and it's a question about exercise physiology, any things that I'm formally educated in or anything that I'm qualified to speak on, here is a wall. I'm going to give you as much value as humanly possible on any given topic. Screenshot it, zoom in, whatever you have to do. The second it's hey, I have torn my ACL. I'm like, that sucks. Did you know that your hamstrings and calves can help with some stability at the level of the knee when your ACL is fucking foobarred? Outside of that, probably go to rehab with a clinical. I know a lot of stuff. I hang out with clinicians all the time, but I'm not about to echo what they say because they may know everything I know as a trainer about sets and reps, but I sure as fuck don't know everything that they know as a clinician that's been through labs, been through placements, been through in a lot of times and places like medical settings as well. I may look like a clinician. I just don't. I play one on TV or whatever the phrase is. And most other people on the internet that speak to that degree of depth are literally speaking from very confident places of ignorance that if nothing bad has happened yet, just wait, eventually. It's not me hoping for it. It's a matter of eventually someone is not going to articulate themselves properly and someone's going to go and probably cause a situation to either become worse or generate a situation that never needed to exist. So scope of practice is the most fun thing you can cite because it absolves you from answering probably a very complex question, but also make sure that people earn trust that you actually won't exceed where you should actually operate within.
Yeah, I love it. Perfect perspective. And that's like the message that needs to be sent, because there's nothing I enjoy more than saying, oh, that's out of my scope. I can't really give you direction on this, but this person can. And it's like, it's just drawing a boundary between like, all right, and it shows a lot of confidence also in the things that you know that you can handle and the things that you know that you can't. And it's the thing about scope of practice is it's predicated by the governing body of X profession, right? Like it's probably governed by the highest level of certification that you have, or like the highest level of capability. So like me, even operating as a personal trainer, like I'm governed by the rules, the responsibilities, the quality of care, and the scope of practice that a chiropractor in the state of California would be governed by, because that's my title. Like I can't operate as a personal trainer without being a chiropractor. Right. So I can operate as a chiropractor without being a personal trainer. And there's a difference in the way that you have to make decisions when you're coming from these different perspectives. And the thing is, people work on the internet now. And I'd be willing to bet if you went back 20 years, there's very few people that were coaching or prescribing exercise that didn't have a degree or a training certificate or like were insured by some sort of governing body. I guarantee right now on the internet, the majority of people that are selling exercise as a product are not certified by anyone, don't have insurance. They probably don't even have an LLC. So if you sue them, you can take everything they own.
Yeah, works wise there.
Right? So basically what I'm getting at is there's no one, they don't have a scope of practice because they don't have a governing body. They never went through the qualifications to say that I can do this. I am a personal trainer. I am a rehab specialist. What the fuck is that? Like people, I had to go to school for a long time to get a doctorate degree and pay a bunch of money to be able to be qualified to do rehab. But there's just someone who, you know, enjoys prescribing banded exercises to people that are hurt, and they're a rehab specialist. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, what qualifies you to be this thing? Who's insuring you? Like, this is practicing medicine without a license. That's like, you can get sued for that. So the thing is, like, the consumer, they don't fucking know. Like, they don't know the difference. They just kind of trust that these people know what they're talking about. And if there's no governing body, people are going to overstep and they're going to overreach, and they're going to do it out of ignorance because they don't know the bounds of what they should know, right? They just know some things that kind of work. And that's, you know, is very much the difference of, like, I don't know, an engineer with a 3D printer and like a carpenter with a hammer. Right? It's like, you have a hammer, like, you're just going to hit nails all day. And when your hammer doesn't work, if you come into contact with a screw, or I don't know, what else do carpenters come into contact with that they can't fix with a hammer? If you have to do concrete work, you know, the hammer's not the right tool for the job. But, you know, the engineer is going to engineer something to do something that they needed to do. Right? So there's these people that are not qualified, that don't know the risk of the things that they're doing because they were never taught the things that they should be doing. They just learn certain ways to do certain things that work. And there's very specific people in my fucking mind that live in Australia that I'm thinking about when I'm talking about this. And they just overstep their boundaries because there's no one governing them, because they never were qualified to do it in the first place. And you see that a lot with, you're seeing it more and more with, like, the prevalence of telehealth, and like a lot of telehealth, even like these companies that are selling it, you're not dealing with a doctor or a physician. You're dealing with, like, someone that got some internal training, so they don't know the interactions between different drugs, or, like, you know, what elevated blood markers mean in congruency with one another versus in isolation, and like how things interact. And even worse than that, you just have a bunch of bodybuilders prescribing drugs. So it's like, it's the fucking wild, wild west out there, like you said. And like, there's no consequences because people aren't holding people accountable. Like, I don't know. I just heard of a bodybuilding coach that, like, killed some girl going to the Arnold with diuretics. It's like, where's the accountability? I don't know. That's got to be a crime somewhere. Like, I don't know. I'd assume that somewhere in the legal system, someone would be pissed off about this, but there's no consequences, and it's wild to me.
That's something that it frustrates me, not because it's rough for my business, but because that at some stage I've had it happen multiple times where someone will be tossing up between me and a handful of other people. Like, they're shopping for their first coach, or they're shopping for a new coach, or whatever it might be. And I stand out to them, and a handful of other people stand out as potential options. And then the inevitable question about like scope of service comes up, and I'm like, yeah, sets, reps, programming, 4 weeks, technical analysis. Like, I go deep on teaching and stuff like that. Nutrition. I mean, I could do macros. Like, I'd want you to train with me for a while so we can make sure we understand communication styles and what level you're at in terms of what would be the most appropriate way of doing it. But sure, we can eventually get into a little bit of, like, maybe macros, like very loose guidance, like the most superficial level of education, because again, scope of practice, but also diminishing returns. So you're not a professional bodybuilder. You don't need to go. So like me being basically the most reasonable, truthful, authentic, but least sexy and marketable version of what this career can possibly be, which is the correct version of for the most part, correct version. And then it's like, okay, well, I think I'm going to elect to go with this other person that then is just like a full, I'm going to training, nutrition, probably drug protocols, rehab if you need it. I'll do a hip replacement for your mom if they need it. Like every single fucking thing under the sun. And then like 4 months later, they eventually like come back, and it's like, that's the idiot tax. And to some of my current clients who have been in that situation, like, I don't mean that disparagingly, but it's like, you either pay the first time to the person that hopefully through this conversation people are trying to realize, like, what are the green flags versus what are the yellow and red flags. And oftentimes people are more attracted to, without knowing it, the red flags of a coach because they think they're getting greater levels of service, when the reality is you're getting the best service possible from the person that understands where the lines of their expertise are, as opposed to just being like, yeah, I can do everything. Absolutely. Without naming names, because medical information, one of my clients recently is getting on some diabetes medication, right? And I'm like, I have taken graduate level endocrinology for my master's degree. My wife is a pharmacist. I'm around the topic. I understand the topic. I have a nutrition degree. I am not about to, in any way, shape, or form, engage in counseling over their dosages, over their timings, over their anything. That is the job of their physician and their local pharmacy team, or whoever may be the appropriate person to do it. And they literally was like, I love them to death, because it was like, yep, sorry, man, like, this is not, I'm not comfortable giving that kind of advice out, because you know what? Anybody listening, what is the consequence of messing with someone's insulin? Like an inappropriate dosage, inappropriate timing, nuking their blood sugar to zero, or oversaturating their blood sugar for an extended period of time. What is the consequence? Yeah. Well, if you pull the thread all the way, that's coma and death. Yeah. I'm probably not going to give advice that causes someone to go into a coma and die, but you know, you could. The diuretics and the bodybuilding, the bodybuilder that passed away. There are ramifications to that kind of thing. And if you don't know what you don't know, you could be walking someone to like literally edge and Sparta kicking them into the abyss. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard to see people operate with so much confidence just because past experience, or like things that, you know, they've heard, or like bro science, versus like, there are people that are very well versed in this, but they have such a high level of education, and they're the people that are actually qualified to be giving this advice because they understand the complexity of it, right? The more simple it seems, like the more ignorant you are. And I think you and I both exist in this realm where we know enough to know how much we don't know. And that's what makes me hesitant to give, like, I've competed in sports that require me to manipulate body composition. I have a very intimate understanding of how to use nutrition to do that. And I've done that my entire, you know, adolescent life, since I was probably like 12 years old. I don't counsel people on that because I'm not comfortable with it. It's just something that's not my area of expertise. It's something I understand very well. And like you said, I can give you macros, I can give you suggestions, but that's not what I do. That's not what I'm good at. But the thing is, like, the thing that I deem myself to not be good at, I'm probably better than a lot of the people that are fucking selling this that have no reason to be, or no means to be. Right. And it's these people that they latch on to the little bit of information that they have, and they become very confident in it. Like the Dunning-Kruger effect is like, they don't know how much they don't know yet. And hopefully they'll get to that place where they realize that they're fucking retarded. But there's a lot of people that operate and build a very, you know, we'll put in air quotes, successful, very fruitful business out of being very ignorant. And that's what's hard. It's hard for me to see people bastardize their scope of practice in that way, is that they're just manipulating the system. And like an analogy that I'll say in like what I do, and it's not necessarily outside of someone's scope of practice, but it is predatory, is like, you know, I'm a chiropractor by trade. A lot of what I do is active care because that's what I've seen the best success with. And that could just be my bias. It could just be, you know, my ignorance. But there are people that do the same exact thing, have the same exact credentials that I have, but like they'll go in and they'll do ultrasound and cold laser and shockwave and red light therapy, and then send someone on their way, and they'll make 20 grand off that patient. And that patient might get better. They might not get better, but I might see that same patient. I'll make maybe not even a tenth of that. Maybe I'll make $500 because I'm very good at my job. And I'll get that person better, or I'll give them the tools to get themselves better, right? And there's one of these. I mean, obviously, the way that I practice, I find that to be a lot more genuine, a lot more truthful, and a lot less manipulative. And that's why I practice that way. Versus this other one, they might be operating that way out of ignorance, or they might be doing that out of a more predatory approach, where I'm gonna squeeze them for as much money as I can get. And that's not necessarily up to me to decide their intention. But it is up to me, and it comes back to what we were saying earlier, is that doesn't align with my values, right? So I'm going to practice in the way that most closely aligns with my values, even if that's something that I might not make as much money per unit person that I work with, but I'm going to do it in a way that attracts people that have a similar value system and want to work and that buy into my rationale around this. And that's kind of, it becomes the same conversation to me. The only thing is, when people are working outside of their education, their certification, their scope of practice, is I think that inherently is a bit more predatory, because they were never credentialed to do the things they're doing in the first place, and they're still selling that as a service that they are.
Yeah, I wish I could, like, I tend to err on the side of, when someone is doing something absurd, it's from an operation from a standpoint of ignorance more than malice, because that helps protect my sanity on the topic. Like, I'd rather you be ignorant than just see everybody as an evil, money grubbing, like trying to like basically scam people. But unfortunately, a lot of times it's not the case. There's a lot of people that are just like, they're motivated by the money of it. And like insurance-based practice has been that way in anywhere in the world. You can find people that are like, make sure you cap out their insurance before they go whatever. Yeah. But the big thing, again, as a personal trainer who operates in a space where everybody does online programming, they're going to have their own business model, but check-ins and tracking has exploded more and more and more. It started a while ago with like, yo, you want to track something? And not even daily. Don't do it daily, because you'll incur neuroticism and it'll fuck up the reading. Blood pressure. Yo, track blood pressure. Because you're not going to prescribe medications off of that, but it'll help you. Like, that's the real. There it is, right there on screen, right? Like, it's one of the things it is a silent killer, because you don't know it's an issue until you have it checked in your. Well, ideally, you get an annual physical for people, but like, that's something that you could non-invasively check once a week, so they don't get hyper neurotic about it and then start manipulating it and fixate on it, and just see like, oh shit, last 3 weeks I've had like slightly high reading. Maybe I should check into my nutrition, or something, right? Whereas like the phrase is, what is an indicated test to do? And you describe that with like the MRIs and everything else in your scope. But for me, it really blew up with like blood glucose monitoring and certain other aspects where I'm like, you don't need to know this information, especially as a trainer, unless there is some clear and obvious thing that's happening, in which case you would immediately refer to an actual clinician. If someone was describing like feeling faint, feeling woozy, crashing energy all the time, I'd be like, hey, how's your nutrition, like around training? How's your sleep? All right, those are not bad. Maybe you should, step in with your physician, walk-in clinic, something, like see if you can get lined up for a test of some kind. It's not me being like, all right, once annually, everybody that's under my purview that's a Gen Pop client, blood work all the time. Right. At least not in where I'm at, because like our healthcare in Canada is universal, but in other places in the world, it's more privatized. So you can call for tests at your own dollar, but like, most of the time tests in Canada, they need to be indicated for a reason. Like it's costly, it's time consuming. There's a ton of people that actually need it. They're going to be triaged ahead of you, things like that. And in this weird space of fitness on the internet, the more information you have, the better. I disagree. The more pertinent information that you have, the better. Beautiful. Like having I have clients that will come to me from other trainers that do like very in-depth tracking, which the scientist in me is like, yeah, data is amazing. Like knowing everything as much as you can is great. Maybe don't speak to the client continuously about every value, because especially if they're all good all the time, don't ever bring them up. But things like that, like I don't need to ever call on anything if I see progress happening. Progressive overload, they're healthy, they're well, they're reaching their goals. If the needle is moving forward, I don't need to be like, well, maybe we could scrape together 0.01% more gains if I see that your blood glucose is that. Like, we're going to do a continuous blood glucose reading for a week or two or whatever. Right. Why? So I can then put something in someone's head that they're unhealthy or that they need to be tracking this for the rest of their life, and they're super neurotic about anything placebo effect, and then they look in the mirror and they don't see what objectively everybody else sees, and you've now developed this entire like dysphoria for no reason whatsoever. Either it's for marketing, or it's ignorance, like I said, or it's malice to get more money out of them, whatever it is. But like in our field, things are obviously indicated. If there's an actual issue, we work out, we lift weights, we do cardio, we don't eat like an asshole. I just summarized our entire industry. If something is indicated, it will be extremely, wildly obvious. And then they'll go to a doctor or a clinician of some kind, and they'll manage it. And then you can collaborate with them and you'll look like a fantastic coach because coach has my best interest in mind and sent them to someone that is trained in this specific space. The same way any physician is like, yeah, you should lose weight. I know it's kind of a dick move, but it's like the meme or the cliche of like a doctor just tells you to lose 40 pounds, but they don't then hand you the exercises to do. They don't then tell you like, all right. And even if they did, it would, you know what it would be? The literal like exercise, like fitness space / government adjacent or whatever it is, guidelines. Like, yo, hit 250 vigorous minutes of physical activity per week or whatever it is, right? It would be that pulled back. It wouldn't be, okay, based upon your blood type, you need to do this specific type of diet or this kind of resistance training regimen. Let's go get your in-body scan, or let's do a bod pod, or let's do a DEXA and anything else that could provide information, but also probably give you a whole bunch of noise that is going to distract from just the things you need to be doing, which is train hard, eat well, sleep well, and just chill. Forget that you're actually working out towards a goal, because that's probably more anabolic than you pacing back and forth worrying about one value that's a shade different than it was last week.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think largely in our industry, I'm saying the training industry, I think what you're going to see is that there's a very strong correlation to improving performance and improving whatever monitors that you were tracking in terms of like blood work, glucose, blood pressure, like whatever metric it is. As they perform better, you're probably going to see that improves as well. And the great thing is there's so much freedom in just saying, I don't fucking deal with this. I don't know what to do. Like, go talk to someone that does. And like, obviously you're not going to say it that way, but like, hey, like, this is something I think you should get checked out. This is out of my area of expertise. I think you should see your primary care physician or XYZ. Like, there's so much freedom in that, because now that was never your responsibility, but you have relieved yourself of all liability. And that's like the core of this conversation, is like the thing the scope of practice is protecting you from is being liable for something that you're not qualified to handle, right? And that's the thing, that very rarely are there actual repercussions for this, unless things go terribly wrong. That's why it's such a blurred line. But like, you are liable if you give someone bad advice and something bad happens. Like, that's your fault now. Like, you're the one that stepped outside of the thing that you are certified or licensed to do to give them this advice. So that's your problem. You created that problem for yourself, and you created that problem for them. Like, there's responsibility in this, and that's what it all comes back to. And that's, people just completely sidestep that.
Yeah, it's been something that's been around as long as I've been, and thankfully I've been in person and then online. I've maintained a certification all the way through, but it's something they speak to. It's like, here's your scope of practice, here's what you're insured against, here's what you're definitely not insured against. And then that's usually where most people like to just find themselves, because it's not, I guess it's likely, I mean, it's what we've been talking about the whole time, but it's a method of distinguishing themselves from what they perceive as a saturated market, or everybody else is providing the exact same product, when the reality, the real distinguishing difference between products. And again, a friend of the show, someone I've had on Emerging Ideas a couple of times, she literally said, we all do the same thing: sets, reps, meal plans. That's basically it. And because it was a marketing podcast, so we were doing, right. And that stuck with me, because it's absolutely true. Like, my programming, it's a different colored spreadsheet. We all do the same shit. It's the individual that they trust. It's the individual whose perspective and advice that they want. And so it's not about, hey, I offer you 10 services and this person only gives you one. It's, I trust this person specifically to take me on this journey, and I feel trust with this human. And honestly, with that trust is probably why you're not going to be pestered with like things that are wildly outside of your scope. It's going to be someone that also walks in with that kind of understanding and knowledge of what scope of practice is and means. Yeah absolutely. And it's so good to align yourself with those people. I have people that like I train that will go see other people for ART and things like that, because they know that it's not my belief system that that's what they need, or like stretch lab and this shit. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it for you. So that's like, it's really good to have those boundaries and create those pockets of, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm not going to do with your people, because then it's just a very well-defined relationship. And that's going to be good in terms of any relationship, is that the better you can define what it is and what it isn't, then the more successful you will be
at understanding both of those things, is that this is what I do and this is what I don't do.
Yeah, it's a scary position to be in, but I've given away clients.
Yeah.
Like same way with like certain techniques that you were just describing. Like someone gets to, I want to do Olympic lifts. Like, cool. I have friends. That's not what I do. You want to be a bodybuilder. I've had one person hit stage under me. One.
Yeah.
And we've been training together for, God, like off and on 5-6 years, something like that, probably, maybe longer, maybe 6 or 7. We used to work together. We have a very deep, like long history relationship. We know each other in person. And there was a pre-existing understanding. Like, I will not do posing. I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Right.
I will not do any sort of like peak week protocols that you may see everybody else do, like weight cutting or water manipulation. There's definitely no drugs involved in anything I'm going to do, because I'm wildly ignorant outside of like obviously my formalized education in terms of bodybuilding culture and bodybuilding, like any sort of designer or methodologies. Nope. If you're okay with that, cool. I got your training. We'll do the physique thing 100%, and that was it. They trusted it. They went about their business doing their own. They had their own posing coach, and it was a collaborative sort of effect. And then people view that as like a risk to their business. It's like, no, I had a very strong relationship, a very high performing client that was more than willing to engage on me with that level. And then I've also had people that, yeah, we naturally graduate them off my services because they've evolved beyond what either I know or that I'm comfortable with doing. Olympic lifting, cool. I know some of the best in the world. If they have available space, I will 100% refer you streamlined direct to them. Want to do bodybuilding? I recommend you go here. You want to do powerlifting? Have you heard of Stuart Locke? Like, I can get you strong, but if you want to be serious, like serious after the novice and intermediates phase, I got people, you know? Yeah. And people view that as like they're losing business, when reality is, when you do this well and you do this right, you'll earn the trust of people that will stay with you for years and years and years. Yes. And then the people that you graduate out are some of the best marketing that you'll ever have, because like you did right by them, you got them to where they needed to be, and then you handed them off at the right time before you cratered their progress because of your own neuroticism, greed, ignorance, whatever it might have been that kept you training someone that you shouldn't have. That's the thing that'll actually, it'll ruin their progress and it'll crater your marketing, because you'll have a sour tasted client that is never going to give you a positive review, but they also have all the weaponized, like genuine reason to be upset because you took their progress and ended it effectively because you didn't know how to actually train them for whatever they asked you for.
Yeah. Beautiful. And that's the values and decision-making and trust of someone that I align my values with. That is you. That is Eric Bugera. I won't take any more of your time. I appreciate you kind of digging your way out your whole last 6 months to show your face on RX Radio here again. Hopefully this will be a little bit more regular thing. But Eric's a great coach. Do you have room to take on clients? If so, where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm pretty much permanently accepting clients. It's of my own side of business. It's effectively the sole service I provide right now is online programming, coaching, technique work, stuff like that. You can find me primarily over Instagram at Eric Bugera, just my name. Technically, I have a website, but it links through from my Instagram, and it's pretty much just a platform for you to like actually subscribe to the service. So Instagram is the main one. Like I said, pretty much always accepting clients. People that aren't like. I feel like that's marketing. I feel like you're lying. Yeah, aside from that, you can find me like the social media platform is also where I post most of my writing. You'll see either like tap dancing on training and life philosophy, like a lot of the conversation today. You'll find deep physiological, like exercise science posts on occasion, like a huge spread of basically like trainer and client based information. I work obviously with Prescript through the Prescript Collective, doing continued education and content creation for them, as well as now I'm doing a lot of the copywriting for emails and articles that you may see through the email subscription as well. So you can find me in some case everywhere, but primarily social media, Instagram is where you can reach out.